I have always had a soft spot for the Fender Jag-Stang. Despite it having a controversial and polarizing body shape, it's one of my favorite guitar shapes due to just nostalgia and familiarity. I started playing guitar because of Nirvana. My first guitar came from a Squier Stratocaster starter kit, one of those cheap ones that come with a super tiny amp. This was back in like 2007, and that was the guitar that I started taking guitar lessons with. On my first day of lessons, my guitar teacher asked what it was I was hoping to learn, and I told him the main thing I wanted to do was to learn how to play Smells Like Teen Spirit. Once I started playing, my first dream guitar was a blue Fender Mustang, and that was thanks to the Teen Spirit music video and to Live and Loud. When I got my first job at 16, I started saving up for that dream guitar. I was dead set on getting a blue Fender Mustang, but it was around this time that I discovered that Kurt Cobain, the guy who inspired me to learn how to play guitar in the first place, had designed a guitar of his own. My world basically turned upside down when I learned about the existence of the Fender Jag-Stang. My favorite guitarist had designed a guitar of his own, and it was basically just a stretched out version of the guitar I was originally dreaming of, so I shifted gears then and set my sights on getting a Jag-Stang instead of a blue Mustang. On Craigslist, I found a guy who was selling a red Fender Jag-Stang for $500. With the help of my parents, we contacted the seller and went to his house, bringing along $500 I had saved from my first job. I walked out of there with my first actual Fender guitar, a 1995 MIJ Fiesta Red Fender Jag-Stang, a guitar that went on to be thoroughly loved all throughout my teenage and young adult years. I used it in all the bands I was in, the jam sessions I would have with my friends. As you know if you're a regular viewer of my channel, it didn't stop there, and over the years the Nirvana guitar collection has grown and grown. But this red Jag-Stang was my first, and it became my standard and my blueprint for what I want out of a guitar feel-wise. Still to this day, my preference is skinny Japanese necks and light bodies, and I attribute that to how much I played this Jag-Stang during my formative years. So while I was more than happy to have my red Jag-Stang, I always kind of had it in the back of my mind to get a second Jag-Stang. I wanted to get a blue one and to mod it to Kurt's specs. But I never really went for it, as I felt like the color of the first two runs of the blue Jag-Stangs were too vibrant and bright compared to the duller, more subtle blue I was used to seeing in Kurt's Jag-Stang in concert footage. Enter now the most recent run of the Fender Jag-Stang, which was introduced in 2021. I started seeing pictures of people comparing this new blue to the old blues, and I instantly thought to myself, this is it. This is the shade of blue I've always wanted for a Jag-Stang. So in 2021, I got a Mexican Fender Jag-Stang with the intention of modding it to full Kurt specs. It's been a work in progress for many years, and I've changed literally everything you can change on this guitar other than the neck itself. But now I feel like it is finally actually complete after the last round of mods I just did to it. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything that went into this Fender Jag-Stang to make it as close as possible to Kurt's Jag-Stang as he played it on stage. The topic of exactly what Kurt's Jag-Stang was spec-wise is one of the most debated and discussed Nirvana gear subjects, and probably the one that has the most misinformation floating around about it. But now, in 2026, we are really lucky to have more or less a full picture of what the Jag-Stang specs were as it was in Kurt's hands during the In Utero tour. In a recent video, I went through and debunked some of the biggest Jag-Stang myths that are still out there, including whether or not Kurt hated it and how many shows it was actually used at. Since that has all been covered there in that video, I'm seeing this one as more of a continuation of that, and we will now be breaking down exactly what specs Kurt's Jag-Stang had, as we know it to be now in 2026. I've gotten this information from two extremely reputable and concrete sources. There's an OffsetGuitars.com message board thread called Jag-Stang Prototype Reverse Engineering, where users Amon7L and Acrylic Superman put a huge amount of time and effort into uncovering the true story of the Jag-Stang, including interviewing people who were actually involved in the creation of it. I will be using that information from their findings along with the info I've gotten firsthand from talking to Nirvana guitar tech Ernie Bailey about this guitar, with referencing Amon and Acrylic's brilliant detective work and Ernie's firsthand memories. I feel confident in saying that the following are the specs for Kurt Cobain's Jag-Stang. It was made by renowned Fender custom shop master builder Larry Brooks, whom Amon and Acrylic interviewed. This is a picture of Larry himself holding the completed Jag-Stang before it was sent out to Kurt. When it was first first sent to Kurt from the Fender custom shop. These were its specs. 2-piece alder body with no contours. Larry has said that Kurt specifically requested no contours. White 1-ply 8-hole pickguard with no bevel. Daphne blue nitro finish. Right-handed Fender Texas Special bridge pickup in the neck position. A custom-made Seymour Duncan 59 that was made by Mr. Seymour Duncan himself. 250K pots, maple neck with a rosewood fretboard, Godot tuners, and the headstock had a special Fender custom decal, the same style decal of a 59 through 64 Telecaster custom, just without the word Telecaster. That is the guitar that Kurt received from the Fender custom shop, but it had some work done on it before the Neutro tour started. Ernie switched out the bridge to be a Godot ABR1 Tunomatic, and he flipped the tailpiece and locked down the tremolo, installed Schaller strap locks, changed the bridge pickup, and did a setup to Kurt's liking on it. Regarding the bridge pickup specifically, Ernie said, the Duncan 59 it was shipped to him with was changed out before the tour began, either in Seattle or at the tour rehearsals. It's possible it went back in at some point, but I recall a white DiMarzio from Pat's Blue Strat and a Duncan JB, possibly F-spaced, were in there at some point. I believe there was another Jag-Stang pickup change during the week in New York City for Unplugged. So the Jag-Stang went through multiple pickup changes, and at this point in time, it's impossible for us to tell which pickup it had at which point during the tour. The only on-the-road change that we can confirm and date is that both of the pickup switches were cut down for the European leg of the Neutro tour. In Neutro tour tech, Jim Vincent gave this treatment to not only the Jag-Stang, but to Sky-Stangs 1 and 2 and Orange Stang as well. Kurt requested this specifically because he was tired of his hand bleeding from bumping into the switches while strumming. Kurt went on to play the Jag-Stang at 12 shows on the tour, making it the third most played Stang, only one show behind second place. By the European leg, I dare to say it was starting to look like it was becoming a main guitar. There are nights where it was used for almost the entire set, a far cry from the outdated myth that he only used it for one song at one show because he hated it so much. After Kurt's death, Courtney Love gifted the Jag-Stang to REM guitarist Peter Buck, a friend of Kurt's whom he long admired and looked up to. REM wrote the song Let Me In honor of Kurt, and there was a period of time where Peter would use Kurt's actual Jag-Stang when performing this song. Peter had the guitar set up for right-handed play, and from what we can tell, he seems to have switched out the tuners and added a second string tree. Footage of REM playing this song is currently the last we've seen of Kurt's actual Jag-Stang. This is how my 2021 Fender Jag-Stang was stock. A big plus right away is that for this run, the bodies are made out of alder, just like Kurt's Jag-Stang was. So right off the bat, we can check off the wood type. I didn't have it in the stock state for very long, as the entire purpose was to mod it to Kurt's specs. What I do remember from it being stock is actually being pretty impressed by the pickups. The Jag-Stangs are notoriously known for having pretty disappointing stock pickups, so they've largely become modding platforms. So my expectations were pretty low when I saw that the 2021 run had a custom Jag-Stang humbucker, as Fender put it. But I actually remember thinking, this is not that bad. It got switched out regardless, but if this was not like a project guitar, I probably would have kept that pickup in. Here are the changes that went into my prototype spec Jag-Stang. A custom 1-ply 8-hole pickguard, Godot ABR1 Tunomatic bridge, flipped and locked tailpiece, Godot SD91 tuners. For the pickups, I right away had a vintage Fender Texas Special bridge pickup put in the neck position. And honestly, out of all my Nirvana Stangs, this is the only neck pickup that I genuinely love and use all the time. For the bridge pickup, I want to emulate the custom-made Seymour Duncan 59 that the Jag-Stang was shipped out with from Fender. According to Larry Brooks, Kurt's Jag-Stang had a custom-made Seymour Duncan 59 that was made by Mr. Seymour Duncan himself. The unique aspect of this pickup being that it was not wax-potted but rather lacquer-dipped, like an old Fender single coil. It also had the Seymour Duncan logo on it, another unique feature as the standard 59s have no logo. Initially, I had a Seymour Duncan 59 trembucker in my Jag-Stang. I got that simply because it's just a white 59 that has a logo. So visually, it checked off all the boxes. While I did like it for a while, I started to notice that when I switched back and forth between my Jag-Stang and my other In Utero Tour Stangs, that I had to adjust my settings quite a bit. The 59 trembucker has a muddiness in the mids that's hard to describe. So I'd always have to adjust for that, but what I really wanted at the end of the day was to be able to set my In Utero Tour amp and pedal settings just once and have all my In Utero Tour guitars be good to go for tone videos using that setup. So I thought recently, why not put in an order with the Seymour Duncan custom shop and request a replica of the special 59 that they made for Kurt. I reached out to the custom shop and I asked if this was possible, and they let me know that they are unable to have the pickup lacquer dipped as opposed to wax potted. So for all we know, Kurt's custom made Seymour Duncan 59 could literally be a 1-for-1, something that not even the custom shop is able to replicate present day. But I still want to address the muddiness in my 59 trembucker somehow. So to keep with the look of a white 59 with a logo, I gave the Seymour Duncan 59 custom a shot. This is a relatively new pickup. I believe it was introduced in the last 10 years or so. It's a hybrid pickup. It's half of a Seymour Duncan 59 and half of a Seymour Duncan custom. I switched it out and right away I finally heard the clarity in the mids that I had been looking for this entire time. So is this humbucker accurate to the 59 that was made for Kurt? Yes and no at the same time. Yes, because it is part 59 and has a logo. And no, because it's also part Seymour Duncan Custom, a pickup that has nothing to do with Kurt's Jag-Stang. But at the end of the day, I'm happy with the sonic results that I'm getting, and that is what is most important to me. When we compare sound samples of Kurt playing his Skystang 1 versus his Jag-Stang, we hear that his Jag-Stang has a brighter and snappier sound in comparison to the Skystang's darker JB. I feel like I'm finally getting a similar contrast when I play my Skystang 1 and my prototype Spec Jag-Stang on the same settings. And that right there, that's been the goal this entire time. A change that I am particularly proud of pertains to the headstock. I refinished it to match Kurt's completely by myself. This is something I have never done before and I had very low expectations going in, but I'm actually really proud of the end result. I sanded off the headstock and once it was down to bare wood, I applied several coats of StewMac sanding sealer to get it prepped for the paint. After that, I did one light layer of StewMac vintage orange paint. My goal was to make the color of the front match the back and sides again, and I feel like I got pretty close. I then applied a custom decal I bought on eBay. Just like Kurt's, it's a Telecaster custom decal but without Telecaster, and finally a couple layers of StewMac clear gloss to finish it off. There are imperfections as a result of me learning as I was going. The orange paint kind of gooped up and pooled down here. I tried to sand it off to even it out, but obviously I sanded it a little too hard. There's also a bumpy orange peel texture to it that can be seen at certain angles. But to be frank, I'm not worried about either of these. When I step back and take a look at it in the big picture of the entire guitar, I'm really proud of how it came out. The Mexican Jag-Stangs have really great slim necks that feel very MIJ-ish, if that makes sense. This neck feels extremely similar to my 95 MIJ Jag-Stang's neck. Fender really nailed it on this run. In contrast, on the Kurt Cobain signature Mustangs, the necks are noticeably thicker and chunkier than an MIJ MG69 Mustang neck. The Casey signature neck still feels great, don't get me wrong, but they definitely feel very different to what they were trying to emulate. Whereas my Mexican Jag-Stang's neck feels almost indistinguishable from my MIJ Jag-Stang's neck feel-wise. For the final part, I want to round this all back to the beginning, back to the original reason why I bought this Jag-Stang in the first place. The color. It's funny how many different variations of sonic blue Fender has put out over the years. But the Jag-Stang color that I grew to love is the pale blue that we saw in Kurt's in concert footage. But keep in mind, stage lighting is probably completely altering our perception of what this guitar's actual color was. After all, Skystang 1 is 100% this deep sonic blue, but there are many pictures where this guitar appears white and even green due to stage lighting. So is this shade of sonic blue 100% accurate to Kurt's? No, it's not. Kurt's was Daphne blue, not sonic blue. But like the Skystangs, it gave off a more muted and subtle color when it was being hit by a bunch of stage lights. To my eye, this pale variation of sonic blue looks pretty close to how Kurt's Jag-Stang did under stage lights. It's also fun to have it side by side with my Skystang 1 and see a subtle difference that is not too far from the difference we see from Kurt's Skystang 1 and Jag-Stang when they were next to each other. And that is my Kurt Cobain Spec Jag-Stang, my build of the most controversial Nirvana guitar that'll probably continue to polarize fans for the rest of time. It seems to be a guitar that people either love or love to hate. The Jag-Stang shape in general will always hold a special place in my heart, being that it was the first nice guitar that I owned and really clicked with, and I have a lot of great memories of using my red Fender Jag-Stang growing up. And while Skystang 1 is always and forever my favorite Kurt Cobain guitar, his Jag-Stang is right behind it in a close second place. If we remove all the myths and controversies and misinformation surrounding this guitar, it's objectively a really cool thought that Kurt Cobain approached Fender with the idea for a brand new model, in that Fender actually ran with it and produced a prototype that Kurt used extensively on stage. Kurt started talking to Larry Brooks about this guitar in early 1993, a little bit before Nirvana set out from Minnesota to record in utero. Nirvana had been big for just over a year at that point. There are artists who don't get a signature model until they are years deep into a long career, let alone create an entirely new model / shape that had never been done before. So it's kind of amazing if we take a step back and look that in Kurt's short career, and in the even shorter window of him being successful and famous, that he managed to see through the creation of the very first Jag-Stang and to actually use it in front of fans. That right there in itself, I think is pretty cool and special. Thank you so much for watching, and an extra special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nirvana Guitars. Subscribe right here on YouTube for more weekly Nirvana gear videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.